This farmhouse, which was unoccupied at the time, was the only building to have been damaged by the slow-moving bog and mudslide. Local residents say they're extremely concerned at what happened here.
Peace out and moving out of the bog, and it came down to the forest, down to Quilcha, about 10 foot high, flowed through the forest and out into this man's farm, down along a stream. It's not at the road yet, but it's on the move all the time.
1,000 feet up the mountainside, work had been underway on the construction of the country's biggest wind farm. These are the foundations for 71 massive turbines. In 12 months' time, they should be producing 1/3 of the country's wind energy.
It is serious, and we have taken the precaution to close down the site, mainly for the people locally and for our workers here on site. We don't know what has actually happened or what caused it, but as a precaution we're getting in our experts. They'll be here over the weekend and advise us on possible causes for it.
This latest landslide in the west caused relatively little damage, but for families living on the mountainside around Derrybrien, the biggest worry is that it may not yet be over.
I think there's an element of fear involved, even at this stage, with such a long spell of fine weather, something like this to happen. What will happen if we get a heavy rain? That whole mountain, you're talking about 850 acres or so of a site of possibly all blanket bog. That whole area could actually move. There's nothing to stop it.
Hibernian Wind Power says it doesn't know when it will be able to resume work on the site. Jim Fahey, RTE News, Derrybrien. A 30-foot fir tree being swept across a roadway and what was once a riverbed on the outskirts of Derrybrien this morning. All day long, these Christmas tree-sized trees continue to glide and slide down the mountainside. At the weekend, a 20-foot high dam was built here to halt the mud flow. It was to prove totally ineffective. One of the biggest concerns for local residents is that the thousands of tons of bog and mud, which is oozing its way down the hillside behind me, is now making its way into local rivers and watercourses and is threatening to cause serious pollution. In the firing line tonight is the company which is planning to build a wind farm on the mountain above Derrybrien. These residents say the project should now be abandoned.
And the people of Derrybrien are furious. So I'd hope to see the Hibernian Wind and ESB International to pull out of Derrybrien altogether and take this stuff with them.
The company says it's planning to build a large dam to stem the bogslide before it blocks the main road in and out of the village. Jim Fahey, RTE News, Derrybrien, County Galway. Once again today, the slow-moving avalanche of mud and bog water carried huge trees down the mountainside and over a now submerged bridge on what was the link road between Derrybrien and Lough Ray. Hopes of stemming the flow at this makeshift barrier were quickly abandoned. Further downriver, a second barrier was erected. Workmen moved in before daylight to protect a vital bridge.
We were called out here at 5 o'clock this morning here, and we built this dam here behind me just to kind of block it off. But it's starting to break through here now again.
Just before 3 o'clock, the first of the newly constructed barriers began to crumble, and thousands of tons of rock, debris and fallen trees were swept over the top of the makeshift dam. The priority now was to protect this key bridge on the main road in and out of the village. 3 separate barriers are now being constructed in a bid to curtail the landslide, which has already caused extensive damage to farmland and forestry and is threatening to massively pollute local rivers. Tonight, the hope is that heavy rain will not trigger even more disastrous bog slides. Jim Fahey, RTE News, Derrybrien, County Galway. The man who makes his living from lakeland tourism. The marine biologist who found the first dead fish. This evening, both were looking forward to the weekend with increasing apprehension. Edward Somerville manages the internationally famous Lough Cutra Castle and Estate.
At Lough Cutra Estate, we're very surprised by what's happening behind us. The peat is coming down into the lake, it appears at this stage, which is potentially damaging to our tourist enterprise at Lough Cutra Castle. The Gort water supply will be suffering as a result of this. The proposed Gort water scheme will also probably be suffering. So we're very surprised and worried about what the future holds and what's going to happen about this disaster.
Marine scientists and fishery officers spent the day sampling the 900-acre lake, which is at the centre of tonight's major pollution alert.
We estimate at the moment that somewhere in the region of between 50 and 100,000 fish could have died. That would include wild brown trout, eels and fry of both species. The scale of it is this river will take many years to recover, and it will cost a large amount of money to restore the river back to its natural self.
First light today and the clean-up operation was underway. Overnight, floodwaters had subsided considerably. This afternoon, the task of building massive barriers to stem the bog flow was accelerated. Jim Fahey, RTE News, Derrybrien, County Galway. It's been yet another day of counting the cost in Derrybrien. 10 miles of river has now been officially declared dead. Farmers have been moving livestock out of the landslide zone, and they've been accusing the ESB of hiding the full facts from them. The level of blasting which took place on the site and the excavation of these quarries are two of the issues which residents will put to ESB officials at a meeting in the village tonight. But the ESB says these are not quarries. They're what it calls borrow pits, where stone is borrowed from one section of a site for use on another. It also told RTE News today that blasting took place a mile from the area in which the landslide occurred. For fishery officers Dave Germain and Tony Roach, it has also been a depressing day.
So what I have here, Jim, is some perch, brown trout, gudgeon and some eel, lamprey eel. And the situation here now, Jim, is very bad at the moment. A lot of trout are dead and we have to dig them out. And as you can see, the water here is filthy, gone down into Lough Cutra. So it's going to take years to get this river back to what it was.
Tonight, the ESB insisted that everything which has taken place on the windfarm site has been within the terms of its planning permission. Jim Fahey, RTE News, Derrybrien, County Galway. Tonight, the ESB team told this meeting that 70 acres of bog slipped from the mountain, but it said this was in no way related to any blasting which it had carried out. It's continuing to defend the viability and the safety of the project. Jim Fahey, RTE News, Derrybrien, County Galway. This now waterlogged 15 square metre foundation for one of the giant wind turbines may hold the key to the Derrybrien landslide. Local people insist the bog slide started here while excavation work was in progress. The ESB will only say it affected this section of its site. 3 weeks on, and this afternoon, the 3-mile trail of devastation through the forest was still clearly visible. This afternoon, the Derrybrien Development Association revealed that the company, which was originally involved in developing the wind farm, offered it £250,000 if it actively supported its application for planning permission. The money was to be paid over a 20-year period. Sergas Energy declined to comment on the offer today. This evening, as they watched work on securing the site and stabilising the bogslide continue, local residents called for government and EU action to halt the project.
We have requested Margot Wallström, the EU Commissioner for the Environment, to look at this whole situation and investigate it thoroughly. We're also calling on the government, the Irish government, to investigate the planning and the whole process that has led to this disaster in our community.
The ESB says all work here complied with planning permission. Jim Fahey, RTE News, Derrybrien. The state of this river 10 miles away in Kilcreast is causing concern tonight. Local farmers say there was another bogslide in this area 2 months ago.
You can see the river from yourself here is filthy dirty, and it has been that way for the last 3 weeks, and a thing hasn't to be done with it as far as we are concerned. And it's a drinking water for our livestock, and they have been unable to drink that for some time.
A company which is building a small wind farm here says the bog slippage was very minor, and this temporary discoloration is due to road construction work which will soon be completed. Jim Fahey, RTE News, Kilcreast, County Galway. They were pouring the first turbine foundations this morning for a €9 million wind farm, which will next year create enough electricity to power the town of Loughrea 5 miles away. For businessman Frank O'Donnell, it was a red-letter day and the culmination of 5 years of planning.
We feel that particularly on the west coast, that there is the possibility of doing this at an awful lot of the towns, and that it should be more frequent. It should be done by locals if possible, and it can be done.
But Frank O'Donnell, like the developers of the Derrybrien wind farm 10 miles away, had a bogslide on his site. Today he showed us what happened when a road was being built here. Galway County Council, which is monitoring the situation, believes 15,000 cubic metres of bog moved over half a kilometre.
It is a demanding site. It takes a lot of care. It was part of a test which was carried out to see could floating roads be built. And the test, it was a failure. Certainly floating roads are not suitable on this site. I wasn't unduly perturbed when I heard about it.
This bogslide is much smaller than the Derrybrien landslide, but it occurred on the same mountain range and it continues to be closely monitored. The company developing the wind farm says there's no question of any houses in the area being endangered. Jim Fahey, RTE News, Kilcreast, County Galway.